Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you're all doing well, hope you're all doing great, that you're all doing absolutely fantastic, and that you're all having a great day. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. There's a link in the description below, and without any further ado, let's jump right into it. I feel like sometimes I'm going completely insane. Like I feel like really, this market, especially this year, has been one of the craziest that we have ever gone through. I was recently chatting with a friend of mine. We were talking about the market, its movements, and where we expect things to go, and where they haven't yet gone, despite all of the news that we keep getting. It's really weird because a lot of times it does feel like a loop. You know, the phrase, history, what is it? History often repeats itself, but no. The point of the matter is it's about history rhyming, and like it's constantly being, why can't I remember that phrase? History doesn't repeat, it rhymes, or rhyming doesn't make the man stronger. I forgot exactly what it is. But basically, the news that we're getting, it feels so ridiculous because we never experienced news like this before. To be clear, we always got good news, even when we were told to be scared and terrified of all the FTX news in 2022. Everything else surrounding that was pretty thumbs up. So now that we're getting like there's less Bitcoin, there's not enough left, these companies and institutions are buying up all the Bitcoin that there is, it just feels, and also in like the public not paying attention. Does anyone else feel that as well? It can't just be me. It feels like we're going through such significant changes in this market and in this world. And when I tell people about it, like people just don't care. Or even like other people who are just like floating out in the world, this means almost nothing to them, and I can't really understand why. So a recent report from a Swiss crypto bank called Sygnum Bank has sent a clear message to the market. Bitcoin is leaving exchanges at a rapid pace. This is something we've talked about for about 3 years now when we first started getting this news. And I here and on the other channel, Money Rules, was talking about the Bitcoin supply crunch and how there wasn't a lot of Bitcoin left, and the amount of Bitcoin on crypto exchanges kept on dwindling. The problem there was that many people here and elsewhere went on to websites and they saw how much Bitcoin there was left on exchanges, and they, well, no, there's a lot left. And it's even, you want to hear something crazy? I'm going to give you a real story, and I don't understand how this works. So you understand, listen, like, do you understand the basics of supply and demand? And I mean like the basics. If you have 1,000 people who want something that there's only 1,000 of, more than likely they would receive one of each, unless you have somebody at the front of the line who's like, I want 5, I want 10, I want 15. There was something, so recently I've gotten, I'll tell you the whole story. Why not? Here we go. Get ready. I recently got back into like Pokemon card collecting. I find it very fun. I like opening up packs. It's a great pastime. I love it. And there's some cards that are like prettier than others or rarer than others logically. Like from the newer sets, I mean, some of these cards are rarer than you can imagine. When people get these cards, they sometimes get them graded. So like they'll get them sent to like a professional. They'll look at it to see if there's any like scuffs or damages or scratches or bends. And if there are, then it gets a lower grade. If it comes back, you know, it's perfection. It gets a grade 10 out of 10. So sometimes you can see on the websites how many of these cards have been graded. And on these websites, sometimes for like a Mewtwo or like a Pikachu card, whatever the case might be, there might be in total like 2,000 of them graded, 3,800 of them graded. Between Instagram and Twitter, I thought these people were joking. No. A lot of people will write things. I don't understand why this card costs $800. It doesn't make any sense. There's 2,500 of them grading. Why is this card going for $3,000? There are 4,000 of them graded. And I remember one time I wrote on Instagram, so like it was like a big, not thread, but it was like a big like a thing. Everyone was like discussing it and no one could figure it out. So I wrote a comment. I was like, it's just supply and demand. If you have over 1 million people in the hobby, 1 million people in the hobby, and we can say with certainty that at least 100,000 of them want that one card, and there are then only 3,000 to 4,000 of that card graded. People are buying that card, and this is why the card's price keeps going up. I thought that people understood that. Like, really, a lot of these people that I'm seeing, and you know how like a lot of times I say like, I think a lot of people in crypto aren't paying attention. It's because I think that they don't have the actual mental capacity to be able to do so. I know that sounds crazy, but think about it. If someone, it's the same thing I told you years ago when it came to art, when it came to real estate. I'm not a genius for getting into these things. I looked at the numbers and I saw this was a video. This must have been like over 10, 15 years ago, like really years ago on YouTube. And they were discussing, this guy was talking about why he purchases 1-bedroom or studio apartments. Remember I told you before, everyone's so into when you look on YouTube, everyone's buying mansions, everyone's buying 5-plexes, everyone's buying these multi-family homes, and they tell you that you have to get deep into debt to be able to buy one of these things. It'll be worth it. Yeah, you know, you'll have 17 families, 6 of them might not pay. You'll be really stressed all the time. Just do it. I saw this guy talking about it, and he went through the actual numbers, and he said, I'd much rather buy one small property every year in cash or every other year in cash when all the cash came together, as opposed to being in debt. His other portion of it was, he said, listen, he said he found like statistics for the way that the world is moving. There are a lot more people who are going to, as the world's population increases mathematically and also because of apps and stuff like that. He said there are going to be a lot more people who are going to be single in the future, like just by pure math. He said these people who are single by themselves, they're not going to want a 4-bedroom. They're not going to want a 3, 4, so-and-so. They're going to want and only be able to afford a studio or a 1-bedroom. He said that this is just, if property prices keep increasing and rent keeps increasing, these people are going to be looking for an affordable way to be able to like live somewhere. If you can't pay, and I mean, I was going to say future prices, if you can't pay current prices of 3, 4, 5,000 for a 2, 3-bedroom, but you can pay 1,500, 1,600 for a studio or a small 1-bedroom, that one's going to rent out instantaneously. And studios and 1-bedrooms, for those of you who don't know, always have a premium on them. Similar to like 3, 4, 5-bedrooms. Like once you get to like extremes at opposite ends, there's always a premium. And I remember telling people this and they were like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would anyone? No one's ever going to want to live in a studio. And I was like, you're not understanding what the numbers and the data are showing. And this is like, even now, if you look for places, you'll notice that studios and 1-bedrooms are usually the first thing to go. They get bought up by investors the quickest because they sell out the quickest, and there's never any friction. When it's just simple supply that is there or barely there, and then demand for said thing. I thought everyone got that. Like, I mean, really like basic. I remember having math in school and I was so bored because I had terrible teachers. And I remember they just weren't explaining things properly. So I didn't even do that well in math in high school. But I remember you just assume that you learned at least some of the basics. If Johnny has 5 apples and there's 800 people who are hungry, Johnny's about to make a lot of money. But people don't get that. So even when we were going over, I think if I remember correctly, I think years ago, I believe that there were like 4 or 5 million. I think that was the number, Bitcoin on exchanges. And we kept on getting news every year that there was, 3.8 million, then 3.2, then it kept on going lower and lower as to how much Bitcoin there was on exchanges. And every time I made a video or spoke about it, everybody was like, yeah, but there's still a lot of Bitcoin left there. And I'm like, are you not even looking remotely forward into the future? If we've seen this trend continuing, there's obviously going to be less Bitcoin. When I say this, sometimes I feel like I'm going insane. It's because of like basic stuff. There's not like, mathematical equations floating past my head and I'm seeing like shapes and stars and I'm figuring out, the origins of the universe. It's me sitting there going, if we have 20 companies who just announced that they're getting into buying Bitcoin, and it's guesstimated that we have 50 to 150 million people who are owning, buying, holding Bitcoin and want more, the Bitcoin holders are going to get richer because there's not a lot of Bitcoin left out there. If we have one company who has 600,000, another company who has 600,000, and they're both trying to get to 1 million by the end of the year, that's another 800,000 Bitcoin that's gone. GAWN, gone. It's just not there anymore. The amount of crypto, just let's be completely honest here. The numbers that we got for Ether, if you missed that, the amount of Ether, we haven't seen this level since 2015 when the project was created. A company just said they're trying to raise $500 million to $1 billion to buy Ether as a reserve. You know how many other companies and institutions are doing that? You know how little Ether, since 2015 when the project was created. 2015. The amount of Ether being staked continues to increase. And no one's paying. People are barely looking in the direction of Ether. It's the most used blockchain on the planet. We just got news that there's one company trying to raise $300 million to buy $300 million worth of XRP. Like, what exactly do people need to get it? I sincerely don't understand. I have this, I told you when I was telling the online, I saw it on Twitter and on Instagram. I remember people on Twitter being like, well, a lot of people are pulling this card. The price should be going lower. And I was like, there's millions of people in this hobby who are buying cards all the time. You think because you don't have one or you and your friends don't want that card's price shouldn't be going up? It's a collecting hobby. Have you ever looked at collecting baseball and basketball cards? I think maybe that's easier to digest for people because there are so many people who like that hobby openly. I think if we actually had Pokemon tournaments and really in a stadium and we got them filled up and had them broadcasted on TV, that would make a bit more sense for people. Some of these basketball cards, a lot of times when you buy them, it says RC on the front of the card. It says for rookie. So if you manage to buy a card from 2019, someone just started playing the game, that card will literally, you could buy it on eBay for $50, $120. You get it graded. Some of these cards within 5, 6, 7 years, if that rookie ends up being like a LeBron or something like that, that card will literally sell for $150,000. And even then some people are like, I don't understand the price of it. And I don't get why people don't understand the basics. I truly don't. I promise you, I really, 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 really don't. It's not that difficult to understand, especially when you have something like Bitcoin. The the idea, the corner of Bitcoin has always been 21 million. You know how many times I've stressed in a video that 4 to 6 million Bitcoin are lost and gone forever. They're gone. They're in landfills. People lost their private keys. These coins are lost. We will never, ever have 21 million Bitcoin on this planet. And then you see more and more Bitcoin leaving crypto exchanges. It's similar to, remember when we had the run up from 16,000 to 100K and people were like, what happened? Every day we had news that just BlackRock alone, BlackRock was buying 8 times, 800% the amount of Bitcoin that was being mined in a day. Just BlackRock alone. That was before the halving happened. And I said, when the halving happens, that gets cut in half. The supply that gets mined, they're going to be buying 16 times, 16x the amount that's mined every single day. We just had news 2 weeks ago. MicroStrategy is buying so much Bitcoin, they've made Bitcoin extra deflationary. We just had news, I think it was even like with the slow inflows that we've seen for the ETFs, they're buying between 3 to 5 times the amount of Bitcoin that's mined per day. Just the ETFs in the United States. What about the other companies who also have ETFs around the world? What about the other 20 companies who also just announced it? MetaPlanet went from 600 Bitcoin at the beginning of this year. They have 8,888 to be precise. They're about to hit 10,000. They're going to get to their 21,000 by the end of this year. Next year, they'll be like, okay, cool, we want 40,000. And still, it does nothing to the minds of people in this market. Like, they just don't care. And then the problem, no. You know what makes me really annoyed? You know what makes me really upset? I remember telling people about real estate years ago. I'm talking about 2010 prices. You could, and depending on where you were, I don't care if you were in the States, I don't care if you were in Asia, I don't care if you were in Europe, you could have found great deals. And I see all the time, whether from people who I know or I knew who I don't talk to anymore because they're crazy, or people who, like, in documentaries. I keep seeing documentaries with these people who are like, it's crazy, you know, no one can afford to buy a home anymore. And I'm not talking about people who are like 22. I've seen the meme, oh, I should have got a house when I was 5. Ha 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 ha. No, I mean people like in their 30s and 40s and 50s. I can't believe why homes are so expensive now. Yeah, it's because of supply and demand. And now Wall Street's buying everything. And even then, there's still bargains that people just aren't looking for because a lot of people don't want to move. A lot of people want to stay exactly where they are, exactly where they were born. They don't want to move. They don't want to stretch. They don't want to do anything. They want to stay exactly where they are and keep complaining about home prices. I remember I had a friend. Listen to this. I had a friend years ago. I'll never forget this. He was a real estate agent, I think in New York. And I remember him telling this, listen, this is 15, 16, 17 years ago. I remember him telling me, he was like, have you ever thought about buying something in Harlem and New York? And I was like, no, it never, I'm not there. It never crossed my mind. He was like, you should really look into Harlem. He's like, have you thought about Williamsburg? And I was like, I don't know. What's William who? He kept on like telling me over and over and over and over and over. These studio apartments, studios, 500, 600, 700,000. 1 bedrooms, 1.2. I mean, a good 1.2 million. Renting out $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 every single month. I think people like for the opportunity to pass them by. It sounds terrible, but I think it's true. I think a lot of people don't want to put in the work. Really, I think people don't want to put in the effort or the energy to actually try and make their dreams come true. There was just a video that popped up on Instagram. This guy, he said, I forgot the exact words, but it was something along the lines of like, make the content. He was like, do it. Stop complaining, make the content. He said, upload it to YouTube, upload it to Instagram, put it on TikTok, he named everywhere. He said, just do it and start making it. He said him and his wife, they make these videos of them just like joking around the house. So, hey, you left this thing out and like the milk is old or whatever kind of jokes that they're making. He said in 2 months, 2 months across like 10 different platforms where they're uploading and all their brand deals and stuff like that, they made $122,000. He said 5 years ago, they could have never, ever thought. It was a random thought that they let's make some videos. They uploaded it. It had some traction, but not really. They stuck with it daily making videos, uploads on every single platform, talking to these companies, getting brand deals, $122,000. Now, how many people do you know would actually put in the effort every single day to do something? Every single day. Every single day, you have to sit there and put in the effort. Everybody wants to make $122,000. But the effort to get there, and I'll even give you an easy one. You need a good chunk of effort and dedication to be able to do that. To hear that all the freaking Bitcoin on this planet is leaving exchanges, going into wallets who never plan on selling. These companies and corporations who said that they're making Bitcoin reserves, they have all said we have no intention of ever selling. That's because they know that they're going to be able to stake their Bitcoin and make passive income forever as Bitcoin's price continues to rise. Because over the next 2 halvings, the amount of Bitcoin that will come out of the machine will just be Satoshis. It's going to be dust. It won't even be an entire Bitcoin anymore. I think people want to complain that the house got too expensive because you don't want to put in the work to try and buy it. I think people like to complain that that asset costs too much. You know how many people, I told you, I saw online that whoever that person was, they were like, so wait, if Bitcoin goes to 200,000, I'm only going to make $1,000. I'm going to choose Tron instead. And it's like, okay, so have that same energy when Bitcoin goes to 12 million and Tron is at $1.50. When Bitcoin goes to $23 million, keep that same energy and think that it's not worth it. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. People don't think long term. People don't want to invest. People don't invest in themselves, which is even crazier. We get this news all the time. In some form or variation, it morphs. It's either Bitcoin leaving exchanges, company buying Bitcoin, new company entering the space buying Bitcoin, governments buying, but it's the same news, different face every single day. A recent report from Sygnum Bank has sent a clear message to the market. Bitcoin is leaving exchanges at a rapid pace. This trend, often interpreted as a strong bullish indicator, suggests a significant shift in investor behavior and supply dynamics. Michael Saylor was just in the news. I didn't have a whole news story about it. He was just in the news. He said, understand that from now on, when you sell your Bitcoin, when you sell your crypto, you are literally handing it to companies, corporations, and governments who are never, ever going to put those coins back on the market. Ever. Understand that what you sell is gone forever. It's the same like that person who was like, stop selling your Bitcoin to BlackRock. According to Sygnum Bank's June investment outlook, a staggering 1 million Bitcoin have been withdrawn from centralized crypto exchanges in the last year and a half. This represents 30%, a 30% decline in the total Bitcoin held on these platforms. If these people took 30% of the Bitcoin on these platforms in a year and a half, riddle me freaking this. What happens in 36 months at the bare minimum? Yeah, if you didn't get it, that means all of it's gone. And for those of you who want to be a little smart aleck and say, no, 30 times 3 is 90, you forget that they're not the only people who are it's not just institutions, it's not just companies. We have governments who are announcing they're getting into this and they're buying up Bitcoin. You out there as well, who have, a buy order every week, every 2 weeks, once a month. You know that there's like 30 million other people doing the exact same thing all the time, right? All those coins are going to disappear. When Bitcoin is at 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, $15 million per coin, remember these moments. The same exact way that I told people before about art, and I told them about apartments, and my friend told me about the Williamsburg and Harlem, and I was like, I don't know, what are you talking about? It's the same thing on a much larger scale. Why is the CEO of BlackRock talking about if the US doesn't get their debt under control, Bitcoin's going to become the world reserve currency? Why did the CEO of Coinbase just say 4 days ago, if the US doesn't get its debt under control, Bitcoin's going to become the world reserve currency? Why do we have 20 companies who came out of nowhere, out of the darkness, publicly listed companies who were like, yeah, we all want 1 million Bitcoin? And those are the publicly listed ones. You realize that something crazy is happening, right? You realize that something insane is taking place. You realize that the US dollar is crumbling right in front of you, right? You realize that it's not a conspiracy, that it is actually happening. The US cannot get its debt under control. The deficit keeps rising. Actual debt for people within the United States wasn't it multiple $1 trillion at this point that will never and cannot be paid off? Have you seen that people are using those buy now, pay later services to buy groceries? You realize there's a huge problem, right? Didn't you think it was weird when BlackRock and Fidelity and all these companies fell over themselves to launch Bitcoin ETFs, talking about Bitcoin's going to be the world reserve currency? Do you remember in 2018, 2019, you can Google this, in 2018, 2019, when the heads of the NASDAQ and the, what was the other one? The other stock exchange, they both said in New York, Bitcoin is likely to become the world reserve. Look it up. Likely to become the world reserve currency. Bitcoin. This is back in 2018, 2019. Nobody thought that crap was weird. These people say this out loud in the open, and we see all the Bitcoin disappearing. I think people want Bitcoin to go to $1 million so that they can complain. I think people want Bitcoin to go to $14 million to realize that they don't have any, because misery loves company. I think people want to complain amongst themselves. You know how many people I've seen really across multiple social media platforms, if you look through the comment section, if someone's showing a nice house or someone's like, hey guys, I just bought a rental property, and they show it like, them fixing it up. The people in the comments like, the house is ugly. The fixtures, I would never do that. And you can't because you're broke. It's this insane amount of jealousy that people love to exude because they don't want to put in the actual work. And the work here is crazy because it's literally just 1 million Satoshis. It's 5 million Satoshis. And holding onto that. A gigantic shout out to everyone on Patreon and over the years who were messaging me, telling me that you accumulated slowly and you have a ton of money now in crypto. Not a golf clap. You get a full round. You get a full round of applause for putting in the work. So many people in this market have no desire to do anything, and they sit there and complain all the time. When Bitcoin goes to $30 million, remember these moments when you're complaining to your friends and your family. Oh, yeah, I remember Bitcoin. Yeah, but Bitcoin was a scam back then. Okay, remember that? Yeah, hey. Remember that years ago? Everyone's saying Bitcoin was a scam. Crypto's garbage. No one should be using it. And you purposefully staying out of the market. Now you're in the market. And I mean, it's not even, symbolism. The sign's right in front of your face. These people have told you in American English, we are buying all the Bitcoin. There will be nothing left for you and your family. Price prediction, $2.4 million by 2030. All the Bitcoin leaving exchanges. Supply and demand. And people sit there not paying attention. That was not the intent of this video, but alas, here we are. I don't get it. Maybe I don't want to get it. I don't ever want that mindset at all. So, for everyone who realizes how early they are, for everyone who understands what's happening, everyone who's trying to become rich and stay rich as the rich people take everything and you're trying to have a slice of that pie, I do hope you've had a great day. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.